All right, welcome to this episode of the Sport Management Office Hours. I am one of your co-hosts, Brandon Podgorski, professor of sport leadership and management at Abilene Christian University. And as always, we have Dr. Nick Zoroya with us from Wayne State University. And we're excited today. I mean, we're excited every episode, but I'm really excited today to have Dr. Geoff Sherman with us from IU Indianapolis, professor of sport management, and a good friend and colleague of mine, working some Pacer games and some other things, doing stat crews. So Geoff, first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh man, I'm excited to be here, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Well, like I said, we're excited to have you. And as we think about themes for the show, one of the things that Nick and I talked about was, we've done a lot with faculty as far as experiential learning and some research and things. But one thing we probably need to kind of expand on, especially as we think about experiential learning, is how do we develop some of those partnerships with our community partners? And, you guys there at IU Indy, and I'm going to do my best not to say IUPUI, but you guys at IU Indy, I think just do a fantastic job. I mean, obviously it helps having those partners in your backyard, but you also have to cultivate, develop, and continue to nurture those relationships for your students. So that's what we want to talk about today. I guess before we kick off, though, tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and how you came to IU Indy.
Oh, geez. I mean, this could be a 2 hour long if I get into that. So I am a graduate of St. Bonaventure University in Western New York. I graduated with a journalism and mass communication degree in 2000. And then, whew, that feels an eternity ago. And I did my master's and my PhD at IU Bloomington in sport management. And I finished the PhD in 2008. In the meantime, in 2006, I took a full-time position with Marion College at the time on the west side of Indianapolis and helped start their football program as their assistant, basically their assistant AD for communications, and spent about a decade with them and won a couple of national championships. So I got a couple of national championship rings at home. And then I got out of the racket and went to work in a store. So I wanted no responsibility. So if you've ever seen the meme or the video where the guy's like, I want no responsibility, that was me. I didn't want any. And so I was an assistant store manager at a Lids in downtown Indy for close to a year. And then I interviewed for this position, a lecturer of sport management here, and I got it. And it's just kind of been history ever since. And about that same period of time, I joined the Pacer stat crew, the Colt stat crew, started filling in at IU Bloomington for basketball and football, and worked U Indy football and basketball as a statistician for all of them. So that's basically, you're pretty well up to date. In the middle of all that, well, after all of that, did the NBA bubble. Brandon, you and I had talked about that.
Yep.
Spent 2 months down there during the NBA restart, and then got to work the NCAA tournament here in downtown in 2021. And that was a lot of games, by the way, and have worked basically every Big Ten football championship since 2016, and Big Ten basketball, men, women, really doesn't matter what comes to town. Me and some of the guys, Scott and Dave, and some others are always there.
Yep.
And people don't really have a choice, but they kind of have to see my mug.
Well, you're always very prominent there during the NCAA tournament, and during Pacers game. Now, people don't know this, but you got the shot of the playoffs
I did.
during the Pacers run. If people remember Halliburton going up onto the table there, and if you saw the picture of like looking up, that was Geoff.
He's right in front of me. It was a moment in time that I captured and will never forget. And I know it'll live on in the general manager's office on his wall. So,
Oh, that's cool. That is cool. Hey, and I was a little bit afraid. I thought Elliott was going to die. We're sitting in the front row because Tyrese was starting to go over. But
well, I
he
saw
caught
the
himself.
video of it. I saw Obi push him in the back,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he about stumbled over. And I was like, whoa, I didn't see any of that because he was dead in front of me, like directly in front of me.
yeah. But I mean, we could talk about that all day, and which is fascinating to me. But I do wonder, so we're going to get into IU Indy and the partnerships you have with the community. I know you and the dean there, David, have, you've got some good relationships there, but how much did those experiences working for all the different schools, all the different teams, all the things you're doing there in Central Indiana, how much does that help kind of get your students and your program in the door?
So my relationships have helped out a little bit. I wouldn't say they've been like the catalyst, but the relationships I've developed with the game operations people at Pacers, the people that we volunteer for here in town, the Indiana Sports Corporation, and Scott, you know Scott, the
Yep.
supervisor of our stat crew, and basically it's been I just will ask a question here and there.
Mhm.
Like it was 5, 6 years ago when I asked Dean, the vice president of game ops at the Pacers, I asked him, "Did you ever want to teach?" And he's a high school soccer coach in Speedway, and
Wow.
he was like, "Yeah, I would, love the opportunity." So for 5 years, I was trying to cultivate that relationship to get him into the classroom, and finally pulled it off last spring. And so we literally taught a game operations class um, with him. But in the meantime, that relationship has helped our students get internships or shadowing opportunities, and it's led to full-time jobs. So some of the ones that are full-time have had me, and now they're willing to bring in my students to shadow them or whatever. And it kind of has just it's kind of snowballed itself a little bit. My focus
Mhm.
has been the Pacers for the most part. The Indians have the Indianapolis Indians, the AAA team here. They have I've worked with them forever. I've worked with them for, I think I just finished my 10th season with them. Um, they are always very helpful. And it's just people that I've worked with, and they know that I'm going to try to give them the best student possible for whether it be a part-time job or an internship or just a shadowing opportunity.
And I think you guys are still working with the Indians on your sales class. Is that right?
Yeah,
Or I know
Dave
you have
Dave
in
has
the
been
past.
cultivating that
Yeah.
forever. Yeah, Dave
Yeah.
has been
Yeah.
dealing with that forever. With the spring semester, the Indians do the sales class, and then in the fall semester, it's the Indy Fuel out
Oh,
of
cool.
the Fishers Athletic Center. But that all might change. That all might change because of the change in our curriculum. So our curriculum's changed to become tourism, sport, hospitality, and event management. So it's not just, so he may have to shift that a little bit to be tourism related, event related, maybe something different. I don't know. But that's what he's cultivating now is those relationships in tourism, event management, and hospitality.
Interesting. I think we're breaking news here on the podcast. That's
No,
kind
it's
of
not
cool.
breaking. It's just
Okay.
he's working on it. He's just working on it right
Yeah.
now. And it may be something that he has to shift. It may not. It may, we've talked about it for a couple of semesters now. And basically he said, I'm gonna have to make that shift. And I'm like, well, do you really have to? Because sales is sales, right?
Right.
You're gonna apply the same methodology to a tourism sale as you are to sport. Like an event is going to be the same principles of, the rapport and the storytelling and that sort of stuff. So he's kind of working on one now that kind of bridges that gap a little bit.
Gotcha. So kind of give us maybe a high level rundown. What are some of the things you guys have been doing there with your partners in Indianapolis?
So we've been working with it's been kind of an informal thing. So I've been, like I said, working with Dean for years, getting interns in there wherever I can. I've worked with their analytics people, I've worked with operations, marketing, just trying to help our students get some kind of opportunity in the Pacers organization, whether it be with the Fever, whether it be with now the Noblesville Boom, right?
Yep.
Just try to get them something. And they've been very receptive to that. And that's a good thing that they've been super receptive. But now it's kind of morphing into a bigger deal because now the Pacers and our school are working on the potential for a cooperative. We're also working on, expanding the sponsorship package to be something that involves students and
Oh, cool.
opportunities, things like that. So
You
it
know,
goes beyond just us, right?
yeah.
It goes into the university structure, the chancellor, things like that. It goes up the food chain, and could come from us, but we're hoping to make it something that's broad based.
So you're placing interns with the Pacers. You've talked about the sales class with the Fuel and the Indians. Anything else you guys have been doing with some of your competitors? Because you talked
Yeah,
about the
our
Indiana
capstone.
Sports Corp. Yeah.
Our
Oh,
capstone.
Capstone. Yeah.
Yeah. Our capstone course. I took over the capstone course. I'm teaching it every fall. I taught it in the spring of this past semester, and the Pacers were our partner. And so we worked with their corporate activation, corporate partnerships group to, do a design thinking study on the fan experience. And we have kind of positioned our program to be different from the normal sport management program. So while we do have the business elements, we do have the basic, these are the areas you can go into, the career opportunities and things like that. We're also teaching them to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that sets us apart from a lot of places, is that we're teaching the double diamond framework, the design thinking methodology in our classes and applying it to fan experience and fan engagement. And that is one of the things that I think people are starting to see and recognize. And it not only gives the student the opportunity to learn a new method maybe of thinking that they've never learned, because it's far from linear. There's not a problem. You have to go find it. You have to empathize with people and talk to them and be able to get them to tell you where the problems are. And so that's the difference in the thinking. And I think the way that we frame it, the capstone class is perfect for that, because that project-based learning, you also have the immersive part of it where we take them, have them observe at a game and have them interview fans that are ticket holders of some kind or that have been there in the last year, that sort of thing. And then we bring that all back and we analyze and synthesize that data to come up with, what are the problems? What are the spaces that we're looking at? It's not just the concession lines, right? What's causing the concession lines to be long? What's making your entry experience difficult? You know, it's getting at the pain points more than anything. And we do that by sitting down with these people inside the organization and doing a needs analysis. Like, we'll ask them questions about what are you targeting? What are the things that you think you need to do different? And we'll start kind of looking at what are these areas. And last semester was the fan experience as a whole, but it was also getting them to their seats earlier. And so
Okay.
because they gave us, some data that showed they were coming in about 5-10 minutes before tip off. Well, they wanted to push that back to 20 or 30, right? Get them into the bowl earlier. And our students came up with solutions that went from trivia in the entry pavilion to um, the entry experience of coming in through security and making that engaging. And they did a really, really good job. On top of that, the Pacers hosted us for the presentations. So we were doing it from, one of their conference rooms inside the field house. And that gives them something to brag about a little bit, that
Yeah.
they
Oh, yeah.
got to do this. And it's all because of the relationships we've developed. And most of them have come organically. It's been, I've pushed somebody to meet with somebody, or I've, helped out with connecting with the right dots in certain places. So I would say our relationships have helped, but I wouldn't say that they were the main catalyst.
Yeah, that's fair. So when you're starting to take students out, and I think the one thing you did with the Pacers was really, really cool this past year, and we kind of talked about this informally, when we were at games, but how do you prepare students during these? I mean, you could think internship placements, but with the capstone as well, because walking into a classroom is a lot different than walking into a boardroom, with the Pacers.
Um, Honestly, it's the preparation for that. You just kind of roll the dice. You really are rolling the dice there. You prep them as much as you can with mock presentations and idea outlines and concept maps and things like that. But you never know what's going to happen the day of wherever they are. We've had it in our classrooms. We've had them come to us. But last semester, it honestly, I prayed to God the day before that everybody's healthy, that its nerves go away for a little bit, and it becomes one of those where they're like, yes, I feel comfortable here. And they did a really good job. But it's one of those where it's difficult to know what you're going to get out of a student in a location like that, but they all seemed pretty comfortable.
Very cool.
So prepping them, oof, that's hard to do. I mean, no matter what we do in the classroom, it's going to depend on, are they really a good speaker? And if they're not a really good speaker, well, are you speaking in the presentation? Yes. Why? That's the question we ask, because what we try to do with our presentations is get the students to hone in on their strengths. If you are not a presenter, don't talk. That's what we tell them. Don't present. We don't need all 4 or 5 of you to talk. We need the person who's going to be the pitch artist to do it.
Yeah, everybody's got a role, and not
That's what
everybody's.
we try to tell them.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Geoff, some of these experiences, they are created, cultivated by you or other faculty members. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, they will just show up at your doorstep. And, you know, I've had that, I've been on both sides of this recently. So I guess what is the advice you would give to other faculty that are trying to build these pipelines and these opportunities? Because, like I said, you can't always at a smaller school. I relied on my network and my my
Yep.
friend group to get as many opportunities as possible, but that's not sustainable. So at some point, you need to go beyond that. So,
Well, and
what's your advice?
my problem is I'm hard to give advice on that one because I'm embedded in it, right?
Mhm.
So I'm like the exception to the rule in a lot of it because, the example I give was I just had the idea when we were in Paris to have Dean's class while we were in Paris. And I did it via Zoom on my phone while he's going over the script inside a core arena in Paris. And they're doing their rehearsal and we're doing it live in class for 15 students, So it's like some of those things have happened organically, but it's been, as far as the advice goes, it would be just try to get to know them. It's beyond networking to the point where you kind of got to let them know what you're capable of and what your students are capable of. For years, and this sounds bad, but it's really the truth. For years, we were seen as the commuter institution in the city,
Yep.
right? The viewpoint of us was not the best viewpoint. And then all of a sudden things started to change when we started saying, we're for real. We're not some fly by night program that is going to give you the worst students. We're going to get the best we can out of these people and the ones that engage with me. I mean, I had to kick 3 people out of my office before we started this thing, right? And the students are just as much involved in that, right? Involved in wanting to do that. And so it's the moment between, I guess the advice would be you can't just hand it to the student. You have to be their advocate at the same time. But if they're not one you want to advocate for, what do you do? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's hard to offer advice on that because where I'm coming from, I'm embedded in it. And I see these people, Brandon knows, I see these people. I mean, good Lord, when the Mad Ants and the Pacers were playing, how many times were we seeing each other during the week? 3,
Yeah.
4. You know what I mean? I'm there all the time, and they're like, "You're irritating because you're here all the time." And it's like, "I'm sorry. Do you not want me to be here all the time? Because I have no problem as long as you continue to pay me." But the thought on it is that you know, getting out there. And Nick, where are you? You're up in Detroit area,
Oh, I'm in Detroit.
in
Yeah.
Detroit. So for a school like yours, the Detroit Sports
Mhm.
Commission, right, is the one where we go through ISC a lot here. And the reason why is because most of our volunteer opportunities come from ISC. And I think Detroit's probably the same similar model. And
Yeah.
then
For events for sure. Yeah.
yep. And what I do is when I first arrived here in 2017, what I tried to do, I literally sat down with the volunteer manager for ISC and I said, I want to position our institution to be the go-to institution for you,
Hmm.
right? And between our sports management club and our student body, I was able to literally, by the time COVID hit, she called me and said, "Do you remember that conversation we had in that meeting at the share? I think it was at the Omni downtown across the street from their offices. We just met at a Starbucks and I told her that's my goal is to make us the go-to." She said, "You got it. You did it." Right. In COVID of 2020, she said, "You have reached that goal." And now their business models changed a little bit since those years, but we're still supplying students that are wanting to go out and get these experiences. And when I was being as upfront as I was with her, she would call me and say, "I need 15." And I would have 15 in 24 hours. So it's getting them mobilized. And for me, this is where I'm different from a lot of people is my goal is not to necessarily make them the smartest student. It's to make them the most excited,
Hmm.
right? To get them excited about what they're doing. When they're seeing me out there, I'm 47 years old. And I have two kids and a wife at home. Do you really think I should be out there doing all the things I do on the side? Right? The common sense would tell you no. But at the same time, I am. And when they see you out there or see me out there, they're like, this is for real. And I've had students that have literally looked at me and said, you're the reason why I'm still here. I was going to transfer, but you got me excited about the program. And that to me is much bigger than any job that they may end up with or any placement I can get for them, is to make them excited about the major that they want to be in.
Mhm. I think it's so interesting because I think we've all, through various institutions, seen faculty that show up, they teach the course, and then they're good. And it's not unique to sport management either. Like we have that too. But it's refreshing that because I always felt like I was a little bit of on an island because I am unlike other faculty I've worked with in the past. I'm doing all the side things.
Yep.
I am cultivating that network, not just for my students, but also for me. I enjoy doing some of those things. Does it really make sense for me with two kids under 4 to be broadcasting on BTN Plus men's and women's lacrosse games on a Tuesday at 2 p.m.? I enjoy it, but like at this point in my career, I don't need that. But there's value to that because now I have more broadcasting experience. I have, again, access to SIDs at a different level that I'm currently at. So
And
there,
I think with your example, Nick, I think that if you can find a way to get the students to shadow the SID, right, to
yeah.
see what they actually do. I had
Mhm.
a first year student that came, she was going to the Indiana game against Indiana State. I knew what was going to happen in that game. If you didn't know what was going to happen in that game, then your head is in the sand. I knew it was going to be 70 or 80 points, right? So I reached out to the SID and I said, hey, because I work all the football games down there. And I said, hey, I have the student that's coming as a fan because her significant other was on the Indiana State team at the time,
Mhm.
right? So I was like, she's coming as a fan. I asked her, I said, do you want to just get a credential and come up in the press box for a quarter or two, just to kind of see what I do and see what everybody here does? And he said, sure, that's fine. And I brought her up, and then she sat there for all 4 quarters. I wasn't anticipating that. And then I actually had her inputting the statistics.
Mhm.
And now she's like, when can I do it again?
Well,
You know,
and to your
that's
point,
the
like
crazy thing.
same thing. I'll just show up on a Tuesday, and people think like, okay, it's just a non-conference Division One lacrosse game. There's not that much going into it. But like here I am in my booth, but next door is an SID with two spotters, somebody doing inputs, someone doing social media, someone doing graphics, and it's still all there. So the experience is there to be had. And who doesn't love free help? I mean, that's the thing that I realized too quickly working at U of M. A lot of the people that are helping out at U of M don't actually go to U of M. Like, sure, do they have students that absolutely will be helping out? Absolutely. But they've got students from Eastern Michigan, from different places that they just want to be a part of that large athletic department. So, there's opportunities. I just thought that first time I saw that, I thought it was strange. Why would I volunteer at a university I don't go to? I have my own university, but there's levels to this. There's
Yep.
a huge difference. So yeah, no, it's just very unique to see someone else. I always look for those extra opportunities. When Brandon told me he was doing the stats thing, I was like, I know some people that do stats for the Lions. Maybe I should, maybe I should jump into that and try to make that happen because I always found that to be interesting. But I also have to tell myself sometimes to stop before I have no time for family and my own kids.
And you
But
might,
those things
and you
always
might,
open doors.
yes, you might end up overwhelming yourself with all the things, right? Which kind of is what I do. But at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way. The thing with me is I never wanted to be an academic. I did the PhD because I had the opportunity. And with that opportunity, I worked in the athletic department while I was doing my PhD down in Bloomington. I worked with the athletic ticket office. I would travel with them. I traveled to the University of Washington. I traveled to, Michigan, Michigan State, Kentucky, Minnesota. I mean, I traveled all over. And that's not even really what I wanted to do. But the PhD came about and was an opportunity. And I was like, well, this at least gives me a fallback, right? And hard to believe that someone studied for their PhD and is calling the PhD the fallback, right? Because I always wanted to be an athletic director at a major Division One. Then I saw where it was going to go. I knew back in 2002 where it was going, and that was straight into fundraising. And I said, I'm not a guy that's going to reach into someone's pocket. Brandon knows me well enough to know I am not going to reach into someone's pocket and ask for money. It's just not going to happen. So I figured that out. And then when I had the opportunity to interview for an AD job, I decided I don't even want to even interview for it because this is not the path I want. And the academic part literally was the fallback. Like I was working at Marion and just left because it was time for me to go. And I didn't expect to be in the classroom again. And all of a sudden, here I am. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to make the best of it. But at the same time, I'm going to keep doing the things I want to do on the side. And I've added things, which it sounds weird, but I've got the Pacers, the Colts, but I've also, the Indians were the first one I ever worked for. The Indianapolis Indians, I spent the summer of 2016 basically as a 37-year-old intern, and they wouldn't give me the intern title, which I don't know if I ever told you about that, Brandon, but they wouldn't give me the intern title. They gave me communications assistant, right? And I was doing the stats, and I was doing some of the game note stuff, and I was working with them when I could. And then I worked at the store for close to a year, and then I got into this. Well, in the meantime, Pacers, Colts, now I've got Indians, Pacers, and Colts. Then over the years, I've, worked as a backup and gone down to Bloomington and done, the select football game. And then they recruited me in 2021 and said, hey, we want to improve our operation with this new NCAA Live Stats software package. They said, we want to improve the operation. What do we need to do? Well, their original staff was like 9. Well, now I've basically pared it down to 3, and we don't need any more than that. And so now I go down every week and I do football. Well, then that parlayed into basketball. And then eventually it parlayed into now I go to Maui every year because of the IU crew is the stat crew for the Maui Invitational. So now I've joined that crew, and now, my family and I get to go out to Maui this year. Both my kids get to go this year for the first time.
Oh, cool.
But who knows how much longer that's going to last, right? But at the same time, those opportunities have popped up. Am I going to say no to them? Come on.
No,
I'd be crazy to say no. When I get the opportunity to go to India, like I had never been on an intercontinental flight before in my life. And I went to Mumbai, India as the first intercontinental flight I ever took. The dumbest mistake I ever made. Not the trip, but not sleeping the 11 time zones to get to India on the way there. I was jet lagged for the next week after I returned. I mean, I was a zombie. Like it was terrible, but it was a cool experience. And then that led to Paris, the in-season tournament in 2023. I'd be crazy to say no to those things, And we're actually working with the Pacers again on fan experience for Capstone this semester. And we were trying to find a date to do the presentations. Well, if the Pacers have another fluke like they did in 2023 and they make it out to Vegas, well, guess what? We're probably going to be asked to go to Vegas. Do you think I'm going to say no? So I positioned the Capstone presentation to be the week before. Problem is that one of the guys isn't going to be there the week before. So now it's set for December 12th. Well, guess when the final is? December 13th. So I'm like, well, I might not be there for my own class's presentation. So Dr. Pierce, how about you maybe lead that show that day, right? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hoping that the fluke doesn't happen. I mean, I'm hoping it does, but I'm hoping it doesn't at the same time. It's kind of like the Fever. I was kind of hoping that they wouldn't win, but then I was hoping they'd win because my schedule, think about that for a minute. I was hoping the Fever wouldn't win, but then I was hoping they would, only to selfish reasons, I guess. But it's just, we're crazy to give them up, but we're so unique. The style of how we do this is so unique because traditional faculty and Brandon being an exception to the rule, right? A lot of times administrators, they can't do the side things, and the a lot of times the tenure track faculty can't do the side things, and unless they can find a way to match it into their research. But I'm in the unique position of being non-tenure, and that side stuff is an element involved in my position now. I've literally morphed it all together to be, I don't have to do these things, but why wouldn't I? Because my students, I got stories to tell. Like the best thing students ever hear is stories. How many they believe, I don't know. I don't care. My office tells otherwise if they don't want to believe my stories, right? So, it'd be crazy for them not to believe them. So you probably have those too, Nick, I'm sure.
No, yeah, and it's funny you mentioned your path because I was coaching at a small school at Marion, and I thought I want to eventually be a high school athletic director. And I did that for a year, and I realized I do not want to be a high school athletic director. And I was pursuing my education as I started adjuncting while coaching because I had the master's. And then I realized I really like being in this version of the classroom, not the high school classroom, but this one. And same thing, kind of fell backwards into the academic side of things. And you run into places. I'm a teaching faculty. I'm non-tenure track as
Yep.
well. And so you run into places. I remember interviewing at Xavier last year, and I said, I have a lot of different experiences from running a fitness center like Brandon's done before to broadcasting to being, a beat writer, coaching in college. And they're like, we love that type of experience because our students benefit from a very, it doesn't help if
Yep.
all you've ever done is studied, and it doesn't help our students get jobs. So there are two types of institutions, right? Those that are geared towards more research, and then those are geared towards more putting people out into the world to do the job. And so we definitely fall into the latter, all three of us. But I do appreciate that there are people like me out there that can take that hodgepodge of experience and help students benefit from it.
And as an R1, trust me, I'm probably not looked upon favorably by some of the faculty, but when I have the provost looking at me saying, just keep doing what you're doing, it's awesome. That tells me I'm doing something right.
Yeah, yeah, we're also in R1, but our specific major is all teaching faculty because they understand why we're here and what we're doing.
Which
And
is
so,
great.
yeah, it's nice to see. And we are judged, we get to choose how we are evaluated, either through research, service, we get to
Yep.
make that choice. So we're still, hey, you're at an R1. If you want to do research, no one will stop you. But that's not what that's not how you're being evaluated.
Yep.
It's about everything else. So it's nice to know that there are other people in similar situations because you rarely get to see. Are you a lecturer rank?
Yeah.
So we are actually we at Wayne State. We've started in our newest CBA. We're on the same track as tenure track in terms of we're associates, assistants, full professors.
Clinical.
We're just evaluated differently.
Yep.
But rarely do you see our ones that have that aren't just strictly lecturers.
Yep.
Or occasionally, like you said, clinical. So,
Well, with me, it's an 80-10-10. So I'm supposed to teach 80% of my load, 10 service, 10 research, which means basically a presentation or something each year.
yeah.
But my 10% service is more like 4,000% service.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I like this conversation because I think, we're kind of going off the path of the topic. However, I like if faculty are listening, there's a path for faculty in higher ed that are kind of wired like we are. Like, I kind of feel kinship with what Geoff said earlier about kind of PhD as a fallback. As I'm trying to work through my dissertation right now, there's been a few, leading up to the classwork and everything, getting into it. I'm like, man, yeah, this is awesome. As I'm starting to write it, I'm like, could I take a $30,000 bath and just kind of call it quits at this point? My wife won't let me, but even when I get it, I know I'm going to do some research. I've got that 10, 15% requirement, whatever it is, and I'll do my presentation. I'll be cool. But for guys who are wired like us, who are just like, hey, I want to build the best sport management program I can if it's going to be there at IU Indy. And the way to do that is like, we've got to get our students placed and we got to get them ready and prepared. And I'm the same way, man. I've had some awesome 4.0 students who, they could marry my kids. They'd be great. Would I feel comfortable giving them a reference for a team as compared to maybe some of my 2.8s who would run through a wall for you and was like volunteered for everything I do? I don't know. But those are the kids like I want to work for. And it's kind of cool to see that there's a path for people like that in higher ed where, you don't just have to be locked into your office, teach your 2 classes and then research and go get grants and fundraise. There's opportunities. And I just kind of think that's a cool thing about our major. And that's, in my opinion, a little unique.
It
I will,
definitely is
yeah, I will
unique.
jump in and say, and Geoff will probably agree with me, the most important thing for faculty is to have that clear expectation with your dean or associate dean that we are not sure you have to meet your requirements, but we are very happy if you are just making these connections. And
Yeah.
I've had administrators tell me before, like, we don't care if you ever do research, just keep working with the Lions, just keep doing your ticket sales project, just keep
Yep.
doing these things. These are the things we want to brag about. That one article you wrote 5 years ago that has 4 citations, like that doesn't do much for our students. But you continuously having that photo with all the students on Ford Field, that helps us. That helps the students. So, just have that conversation with those people and if you have the support, like it's so much easier to do what we know is the right thing to do, is the best thing, but your contract might be a little bit different. So I think that's a really important thing, is just to have that conversation and just make
Absolutely.
sure you're all on the same page.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. So as we're kind of starting to wrap up here a little bit, Geoff, if you think about, we've talked about it a little bit, but what lessons have you learned working with these community partners that have kind of maybe changed the way you guys have done things, coming in there first, at 2017 to now? What have you learned along the way, and how have you kind of refined your guys' processes as you've gone along?
That's an interesting question. For the most part, not much has changed except for the way that we are teaching the classes. So the terminology and everything stays the same in the sports industry: internships, right? But those may not be the best mechanism anymore, because it's that word is being thrown around for what constitutes a part-time job,
Mhm.
right? Um, but what I've seen is the way organizations look at us now versus the way they did is a little bit different, because of the fact that we're actually trying to do the work behind the scenes of a lot of things. And what I mean by that is we're trying to involve the community in a lot of our research. We're trying to involve them in, for instance, we do something called the Indy Sports Poll, where our institute has been huge in um, doing consulting sort of work, and where we get a grant and from an organization. I'm not sure if it's called a grant, but I think it is here. But we get, a stipend of some kind that covers our research costs for, the Indy Sports Poll. We did a couple of content analyses with the Big Ten. We did another one with the Colts. We did a whole bunch of different things, and that's parlayed into bigger projects. And I
Yeah.
think that by doing that, now we're getting students in to do it. And by having students do the data analysis and the data entry, and we have this informatics 4+1 program where they get a master's in informatics or analytics as they're doing a sport management degree. And that 4+1 is allowing people now to create visualizations in Tableau or Power BI and really get into their creative spirit. And I think that's the big difference for us, has been the creativity. We're trying to unlock imaginations and unlock the creativity that, to be honest with you, has been locked up by high school and has been locked up by the way the education system is set up, that it doesn't encourage that. It doesn't encourage the creativity, the imagination, the critical thinking, the collaboration with people. It is now. It's getting there with the young people. But
Yeah.
you go back 20 years and it was material, exam, check it off the list.
Yep.
And that's what I literally what I told my kids this morning, or not this morning, yesterday, was I'm not here to give you a grade of correct or incorrect. I'm here to give you a grade of progress. And if you can show that you're using your imagination, you're using your creativity in the design thinking process, you're going to do fine. It's the people that think, is this right? Is this wrong? There is no right and wrong. That's business. That's the gray area of problem solving and decision making, is what do you have to do to get there? Not, is this the way to do it? Is this correct? Is this, it's not correct and incorrect anymore. Everything has a gray area to it. Yes, there are the grades that you have to have, the exams, the papers, things like that. But these projects, it's not about right and wrong. It's about, can you present to an industry partner? If you are able to do that, guess what? You did really well. If you are able to go through the process of design thinking, I think that's the change. I think that that's what people are noticing in the city, is that that's what we're doing. We're not positioning them to answer the questions on an exam. We're positioning them to ask the questions and understand the answer, not answer the question with the correct answer. Does that make sense?
Makes
Yeah,
a
it's
ton
no
of
longer
sense.
about what you know, it's more about what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's they always say sport management isn't about what you know, it's about who you know,
Yep.
but it's also who you know and what you can do. What can you
Yeah.
provide?
Yeah, I
It's
tell
funny.
students
I had a guy tell me years ago, the Techstar Sports Accelerator's managing director actually looked at me and said, and it was in a speech that he gave to our club. He said, "How many of you want to be a general manager?" And then about half of them raised their hand, and he says, "There's only two paths to become a general manager. One is generate revenue, and the other is own the team."
Mhm.
And you can't generate revenue by taking an exam. And I'm not downplaying that. Don't think I'm downplaying that. There is a need for that.
Yep.
But it's the stuff that on the side of that, do you know how to make a sale? Do you know how to generate revenue? Do you know how to help the fan have a better experience at an event? Do you know the right questions to ask? Do you know what the problem framing really is? That's what I think the difference in our program and a lot of other programs is that we're doing something I don't think anybody else is doing. And they might be doing some permutation of it, but the way we're doing it is literally trying to push them out there and create, whether it be their own business, whether it be their own product, but they're solving a problem that exists, and that's I think what puts us in a good position with the city.
Yeah. And the proximity to the teams certainly helps, but it requires, and I don't want to downplay this, it requires, you and David and everybody else, everybody in your department going out and doing this stuff. So, just because you got something in a major city or you got a program in a major city doesn't mean like, hey, we've made it, we're good, and students will just go out and get jobs. So,
You can't sit on it. You
you
can't sit
can't.
on it at all. They have to
Yep.
be active. You as faculty have to be active, developing and cultivating those relationships so that you can hand off a student. When I get a text message or an email from one of the people in the upper echelon of the Pacers or the Indians asking me, "What do you know about this student?" That's the best feeling. Is,
Yep.
what do you know about this student? Okay, well, this student's an all-star. You want to hire this person. And I remember the Alyssa with the Pacers. I'll never forget. I got asked, "What do you think?" And I went, "This one is going to be amazing for you." And sure enough, she's not full-time there. She's like number 4 in command there of game operations, running the Mad Ants games when they were Mad Ants, and now running the Fever games. She ran the last couple of Fever playoff games as a game ops person.
Wow. How about that?
That's that says something about what we're trying to do.
Well, I love it. You guys keep up the good work, and I'm glad to be down in Indy and be close and have some of the benefits of having the relationship with you and having a little bit of time with David not too long ago, kind of steering me through my dissertation. He's cited quite a bit right there, so
That doesn't surprise me. But you
yeah,
can see the research element of him and Liz mixed with the practicality and involvement that I have. Now, that's not saying they're not, right? Liz was highly involved with the TED sports stuff that came to Indianapolis.
yeah,
Dave was highly involved with that. We're all highly involved with the local organizing committee for the Final Four in 26. It's goes beyond that, though, to the point where these people actually know us. They know who we are. I mean, I'm going to be working with Joanne Scott next semester. Like, we're doing a mega events class that is literally, this is the weirdest thing ever, but this is kind of the model of, it's wild. Brandon, you're going to have to follow this, but I'm the instructor of record on a class that's mega events that's going to actually be taught by Joanne Scott, who
Cool.
is the director of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and we're going to be doing our class in our classroom, but we're going to be streaming it to Butler, Ball State, U Indy, right? So it's a full-on collaborative deal with the
Wow.
local institutions around here, but that's my class. Like it's Joanne's, but slash me,
Right.
right? But that's the type of thing, that we're trying to do is be innovative in the space with these partners. Joanne's been interested in teaching. She's leaving a legacy. She's going to retire in a few years, right? Let her build this, let her build this. It's going to be amazing. And it culminates with the Final Four, so you can't get much better. And it's going to be the model for the future. You know what I mean? The model that they follow for the future with other cities potentially, so it's like, wow, I want to be on the ground floor of this, and if we didn't have those relationships, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, one of the things we talk about, especially at administrative level, is just the enrollment cliff and how everything right now is in higher ed. We're like one day away from everybody just losing their job, which is, melodramatic, but um,
You're throwing drama in here, Brandon.
I
You shouldn't be
am,
throwing the drama at us.
and I'm not afraid
It's
to
true
bring
for
that up
some people, though.
in
It's
meetings,
just
though.
not for, yeah, it's not true
Yeah,
for everyone, but it's definitely true for some people. Some
but
Yeah, we
programs don't
can't be afraid to
survive.
talk about the cliff.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
but we talk about as SIDs or athletic directors, sports being the front porch of your institution. I think sport management could be the same thing because you talk about something that, hey, we've got these pictures, Nick was talking about, or we got these experiences, and our students are doing this and this and this. It's not to say that what they're doing in humanities and engineering and everything isn't cool. They're doing a lot of cool stuff, but man, it just jumps off the page. And I think faculty, you've got an opportunity in sport management faculty, man, you could be the hero of your campus if you're just willing to put in that little bit extra effort and just make those connections. But
I've always
that's my
had the attitude.
soapbox.
I've always had the attitude of I want to if I can recruit 2 students a year, I've paid my salary.
There you go. Yep.
That's the old athletics mentality
Yep.
of how many zero expected family contribution students can I get to
Yep.
come play for my team? And that covers my salary for the year. So for me, it's like if I can help recruit and bring in 1, 2, 3 students a year, that's good, right? But it's bigger than that, right? Obviously the cliff and all that, but that's always been my mentality is I need to put butts in seats.
Yep.
It's like heads and beds in the tourism world. Well, colleges, butts and seats. If you don't have the students there, you don't have a college.
Yeah. Well, doing everything you're doing, you're going to help retain them too, which
I'm
is
trying,
huge.
man.
Yeah.
Man, am I trying. I'm here to tell you, I bring an energy to the classroom and I'm tired when I get home at night. Like you add a fever game to it when I'm having to watch that basketball twice, I'm just really exhausted by the end of the night, having to fight through, the changes that we have to make and the missed plays and all that. Oh man, it's a long, long night, but it's worth it. It's worth it every bit of energy that I expend.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. So, Geoff, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. And if people want to know more about what you guys are doing there at IU Indy, just Google IU Indy Sport Management. You're going to pop right up. And good luck the rest of the way this year.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on.